there, YouTube. Welcome on back to Artichoke Dip. My name is Rob, solo tabletop gamer. And in this video, well, let's get into the big change that's, well, is it really a change? Let's just start with that and talk about a few RPG books out there that maybe not aware that are out there that, well, may help you out, may fit your gaming fancy, and you may like it. So before we get into the video, if you like it, click the like button. We'll bring more gaming content your way. And as I said in my last video, and I'll say this again, I'm not your average YouTuber. I don't upload every day. I don't spend weeks on end editing and doing all that. When I feel the, how do we put this? I don't want to say urge, maybe we could say the spark of creativity, if you will, to make a video. I sit down and hit the record button and I make one. So don't forget to click the subscribe button followed by the bell icon. When I do upload, you're going to get a notification so you do not miss one. All right, so first topic let's jump into and talk about is the elephant in the room. Everybody's talking, and that's the fact that we've seen Wizards of the Coast back down and say, look, we're sorry, let's all be friends again. You just keep buying stuff, and and so the gamers and the gaming manufacturer lived happily ever after. I don't foresee that happening. And in my rant video, and then for many of you, if you don't know, that was just a completely raw video. That was hit record, sit down, and everything on my chest, I just got it out and uploaded it. But the point that I did bring up in that video was, do you think they're done? Do you think they're really done? Or do you think they're just going to fall back a little bit and let their legal team look at this and decide a more inventive way? Because that's what they do. Or could it have to do with, maybe, if you look at the financial reports and the news, and, well, their stock's falling $43 a share, maybe that has more to do with it. But at the end of the day, I think this has just put a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Now, don't get me wrong here. Whatever edition of D&D you enjoy playing, keep playing it. I know I'm going to keep playing early editions of D&D. I own them. I like them. They're on my shelf. It would be stupid not to. It would be like cutting my own nose off to spite my face. It just wouldn't make much sense. But moving forward, am I going to support a company that tried to cut the legs out from underneath so many other people out there for greed? No, I'm not. And I just can't get behind that. That's just, it's a horrible thing to do. And let's face it, just like I said, Wizards of the Coast, or I should say the officially licensed Dungeons and Dragons, they haven't really published anything that I've wanted to play in a long time. They've just kind of, and I'm not going to say lost their way, but there's a difference between good gaming content that's made by gamers that you really want to engage with and you enjoy to play versus gaming content that's just designed with marketing in mind and selling a logo, a brand to you. There's a big difference, and the difference is the overall quality. What kind of gaming quality do you want? And that's a question that I can't answer for you, but you'll have to answer for yourself. So that's all I'm really going to talk about with that. I already explained to you what I think is going to happen in the future, and we'll see if these gaming companies, a lot of these third-party publishers, if they go running back to Wizards of the Coast thinking it's all over, just to expose them to another attack, or if they will do the smart thing and, well, separate themselves from it and either go and just self-publish themselves without the OGL, or go underneath another corporation that offers an OGL. We'll see. We'll see how the future plays out on that one. But let's put that in the rearview mirror and just leave that well enough alone as to what it is. But let's say you do enjoy old school gaming, and maybe perhaps you don't want to give your money to Wizards of the Coast, for example, but you still want some old school gaming at a reasonable price, but you don't want to pay top dollar for it, but still get decent gaming. There are options out there, and I've talked about them. One of them right here, Castles and Crusades. Another one that's out there, Swords and Wizardry, which I really like. I mean, it has really grown on me over the last year, and it's just become more and more prevalent in when I want to play that type of gaming, what I keep going back to. Several reasons. One, simplicity. It's a very simple game. It doesn't slow down gameplay. It's very soloist gaming friendly. And the other thing is, it just makes saving throws all the more simple when you're playing solo to have one number to focus on than multiple other choices and trying to figure out what falls into what. Now, those are my top two picks, but there's also another one out there, and he's been around for a while, believe it or not. And years back when I was making videos, and as a matter of fact, the first video I ever made, and I started talking about solo RPG, I talked about one of his books, which is Basic Fantasy, which I just recently checked. It was $5 to order it and have it printed and sent to you through Amazon, but now it's at $4. And I'm guessing the price has come down because basically, if you've noticed, the cost of lumber and everything has fallen. So as a result of that, I'm thinking paper has gotten a lot cheaper. I could be wrong. Maybe they're just cutting their prices to entice more people, or perhaps that is it. But Chris Gunnerman did put something out that I picked up. I picked up the hardcover when I saw that it was released, because typically I like hardcovers. They hold up better. You can put them on the shelf, and if you stack them on the side whatsoever, you don't have to worry about all those other issues you're going to find with a soft cover book that will typically wear out quicker, rip, and all the other things that you're plagued with a soft cover. But that game system, which is, it's a retro clone. Let's get that out of the way first. So it's earlier edition of D&D, the way that when Gygax, I would say, presented it and seen the game, and has been more modernized. The rules have been cleaned up, and it's more accessible for more people to get into. And that is called the Iron Falcon. And this is a really, it's a good compilation of information if you want to look at some old school gaming. You want to stick to the more basics of RPG fantasy gaming, basic races and classes and monsters and so on and so forth that we've seen in those earlier years, compared to some game systems now that have just so much variety out there that maybe you just don't want that. Maybe you just want to stay old school. It's really a good book to pick up and to have. Or if you have those original printings and they're starting to look a little sad and you're kind of worrying about using them and losing them to time and wear, this could be a good replacement for your table that, of course, isn't a hardcover, so it'll last a lot longer. You know, on the back, to be fair, it does tell you, and it represents to you, it says, "This is not a new game. The Iron Falcon rules for classic fantasy role-playing reproduce with the highest possible degree of faithfulness the mechanics of the role-playing campaigns from the very early days of the hobby. The material presented herein is as close to those early campaigns created by the founders of the hobby as possible, with all magic and glory intact." So right there is going to explain to you, you're going to get as close as you possibly can to getting the first printings, but it's going to be much more streamlined, I should say. It's going to have more of a modern gaming aspect to it. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking that the game is more modern like what you see in a D20 system. It just means the rules have been cleaned up, the more clean and concise. And if you were to look back at some of the earlier books for the hobby, some people, and it took them a while to figure out the rules because the rules just weren't that, shall we say this, clear. They're a little muddy, if you will. But anyways, so, and of course, let's go into here. The best way to just present it to you is the way that Chris Garman has put this on the back of the cover, and that is, this is a new game. Okay, so he says on the back, this is not a new game. Then he goes into, this is a new game. Iron Falcon presents those classic game mechanics in a clear and concise fashion in the form of the single book. These rules are just a sort of loose framework they were always meant to be. That's important. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But now, logically organized and easily used as a reference. So this book is a twofold thing. And what I mean by that, it's an RPG system. And it's basic RPG fantasy. You can sit down and read through it, and you're going to get a decent idea. It's not going to give you examples of game flow or anything like that. So for people brand new to the hobby, they may struggle with this a bit. This book is actually presented and put out there for people who have played RPGs before, and particularly they like those going back to the roots, going back to the original days of the hobby, and they're looking for something. Instead of having small books and having to collect those, they can just buy one book, have one reference at their fingertips to cover everything, which is a good idea, which is why I picked this up. But as he talks about in here, these rules are just a sort of loose framework. And what does he mean by that, loose framework? Well, something's kind of happened with gaming over the years, and as it's become more popular, more marketed to the masses, which isn't a bad thing. Don't take that the wrong way. That's not. It's very humbling to see now how RPGs have just exponentially grown, and how more and more people play with them. They talk about them. We have seen video game renditions of it, and it has just really exploded, which is a good thing because this really makes our hobby better. But something also happened in that, whereas if it was just a hobby and everything was left up to us to be able to create our worlds the way that we wanted it and put in what we wanted for our game table, where whether you're a soloist or playing in a group, only those people would understand and enjoy, which made each game group unique unto itself and its own spin on the conception of the world in which they're playing. And where, as we see with one of the things I have a problem with, where I said before, I enjoy campaign settings. I like the fact that you get a huge wealth of knowledge. You get topographical maps, so you have a visual representation. You get a little bit of a encyclopedia, so you have an idea of what's where, what you can expect, give you a spark of imagination to work with to be able to create. But everything else is left up to you, to where you see campaign module adventures where they're written with a narrative in mind, and the RPG has gone more to the point of like a movie script rather than let's see what the characters are going to do and if they're going to burn the city down or not. So that's what I'm talking about he's referring to, that loose framework, having more freedom to do what you want to do and not really having to worry about sticking to a story narrative plot line that will ultimately get you to the resolution or the end of the scenario like a movie script, if that makes sense. So this is a good one to pick up if you are you like old school fantasy gaming, and you want to venture more that way, maybe perhaps you want something that's more true to the basic roots of basic, and you maybe don't want something a little bit more modern like Castles and Crusades or Swords and Wizardry, it's definitely a good system to check out and pick up and put onto your shelf. But I will say, if you're looking for old school gaming, and I really think there are other systems out there that have re-represented it and done a really good job with it that I engage with and enjoy much more. Not saying it's a better game, but just more overall attention, we'll say, to detail, game flow, and rule play, as you will, have been put into it. And they're created by gamers, people who enjoy gaming. So that's another little tidbit of information, if you will, if you are concerned about those things. Now, something else I want to get into, actually, I have picked up a couple of different systems here that I have recently added in. One, I just started reading, just cracked the cover on it, and it should be, I'm really excited to get into this one and see all that it has to offer. And if you're not familiar with this one, Don, the solo RPG guy, talks about it. As a matter of fact, that's who I heard about this from, because I've been on the fence, because I am now at the point where I'm really thinking, before I get another RPG, I'm limited on room. I want something that's going to be good. I don't want something that the cover art looks great, which intrigues you, but then when you crack the page open and you start reading it and getting into it, you quickly realize, well, wait a minute. This is just like this that's sitting over here. It's just been worded a little bit differently, and some new art to it, and maybe a few minimal changes, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. That's where this is completely different to itself, and that is the Cypher RPG system. Now, Cypher, unlike this one right here, Iron Falcon, where you know you're going to be playing in a medieval fantasy setting, the Cypher system is just an RPG. It's a RPG that any type of setting, from high fantasy to medieval fantasy to modern day now to advanced sci-fi, we'll say in the 31st century, and everything in between you can possibly think about, you can create. And the simple thing is, the encounters and the way that everything works, you can borrow from any other system and bring in really easily and put it into your campaigns. But it's the freedom. It's just an open-ended RPG system, and you can make anything you want with it. And the nice thing is, the rule systems are simple. It is very simple, and for a solo player, it's a dream come true, actually, because not only would this be extremely simple in a group setting, but for a solo player, it's a whole lot more simple, because some RPGs can be very crunchy and rule heavy, and you can have a lot of rules referencing to do and remembering bonuses and modifiers and all these other things, where if you're very familiar with the game system and you understand it, will be very simple. But if you're just new to it, it's another burden that you have to learn, and it can be very taxing for the solo player, where this streamlines it very quickly and makes it easy, particularly with the difficulty class roles. So if you're familiar with a difficulty class role, you know Well, you have a set target number, you roll your d20, you add your modifiers, and you see if you passed or failed. In the Cypher system, it breaks it up into a 10 different degree, one being just a simple task as of walking across the room to turn a light switch on, up to impossible, and those scale from 1 to 10. It's real simple. Let's say your difficulty class comes in at a 2, which doesn't sound bad, but then you multiply that by 3, you quickly come to 6. So your difficulty class is a 6. You got to roll a 6 or better on a d20. Now, depending on how you rolled, moving on from a 17 all the way up to a 20, can change the outcome significantly that was written into the game mechanics. And I have to say, Monty Cook, everything Monty Cook seems to have produced, I like it. The guy makes excellent gaming content. As far as our hobby goes, for an RPG writer, the guy is way ahead of his time, if you ask me. And I think we're going to be hard pressed to find really inventive, thinking out of the box, quality content like we see from Monty Cook, which makes you wonder, if this guy can make such great content and inventive content, why are we not seeing more like that? Why are we just kind of seeing the same thing rehashed over and over again, almost like it's driven for marketed sales? Come on, we all know that's the case, but the Cypher system rulebook, if you're a soloist and you're looking for a great game system, that you buy one system and you can have multiple different games. And I mean, this thing gives you, and it encourages you when you read the introduction, your favorite movies, books, anything you can think of. It helps you build that world and bring it to life and create the characters and make the encounters. And it's so simple that it just brings an RPG system to your table fairly quickly and simple. So I know as of currently, right now, because I got mine on sale and it was a ridiculously cheap price compared to what this has originally been sold for, right now is the time to jump on over to Monty Cook Games. I'll hold that up there so you can see that. That's where I got it from, directly from their site. If you go directly to that site and get it, you cut the middleman out. So now you're just left with media shipping, and you're not paying that extra couple of bucks that you may have to pay whether you go through Amazon or eBay to get it, but you're getting a great system at a great price. Now this came in at 34 bucks. I got it on sale, and it was originally retailed at $100. So right now, if you're thinking about getting into the system, now is the time to get it. Now is the time to go to the site, because once that sale's over, it's going to skyrocket back, probably back up to about $100, which, let's face it, I would have a hard time justifying $100, even though it's a great RPG system. That's a lot of money, but 34 bucks for this huge system, that's a steal. All right. So something else I'm going to move into and I'm going to talk about here. And this is one that I have to say, it was not that expensive, but the cover art caught my eye. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. Now, I have not got into this whatsoever yet. As you can see, it is an OSR, and it's a game that I expect this is, of course, a clone of the original. How shall we say that? Starts with a D, ends with a, starts, the other word starts with a D, and you put an and in between the both of them, and that is called Sojourn. Now, Sojourn, let's see, and this is kind of what pulled me into it. It says, what is Sojourn? Sojourn is a tabletop role-playing game of exploration, dungeon crawling, and discovery within dark halls, mystic ruins, and wilderness of the fantastical. Why Sojourn? With a big question mark. Sojourn is fast-paced and easy to learn. Skip the studying and jump right into the action. That's really what kind of caught my eye. Sojourn, simple yet robust rules reward creative play and imaginative approaches to challenges while offering advanced character options for players who love to customize. So once again, you can see there, it's kind of in a different way, talking about how Chris Gonnerman had put in here, talking about the loose framework of play, and just giving you, the player, whether you're a soloist and you're creating it yourself or you're playing in a group, just giving you more freedom to be able to do what you want with the game rather than having to follow an extremely narrative-driven plot that maybe you don't like. If you're like me, I don't like them type of games. I don't like having to be in a very scripted story narrative-driven game. And people may say, why? Well, if I'm going to do that, instead of putting forth all the time to sit down, write this, create it, think of the encounters, how I'm going to do it, pulling the model pieces out to create the terrain for the battle and all that, I might as well just go play a video game because it's all done. And I can just sit in the recliner, stuff my face with pizza, and do it that way. But I would rather have a game that's more detailed to my imagination and what I want to do. So we're going to have to give this thing a roll through and see what it does. Now, it says Sojourn brings to the table intuitive 5-minute character creation. This is good. This is real good. This is one thing that I did not like about 5th edition. I like spending more time thinking of a good backstory for my character and not so much having to sit down and put an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or however long in a character creation. And here's another thing to think about. If you're trying to get new players into it and they have to go through this daunting task, they've never played the game, but now they have to sit and figure this out for 2-3 hours of character creation, it may scare them away, because what is your first impression going to be? If it takes you 2-3 hours to make the character, how long is it going to take you to play the game? You got to think about that. So it says high compatibility with your favorite adventures. So as you can see there, it's what it's referring to. Exciting, streamlined, and flexible adventuring rules. 4 core character classes with 12 advanced archetypes. That is cool. A full bestiary of ferocious new monsters. Familiar favorites. 6 unique magic systems to choose from with over 150 level-less spells. Okay, this I do like, and I have played other RPG systems that use similar ideas. One of them, Fantasy Age. I love the magic system and the way that it worked in that, versus where you see at first level you get to pick 1 spell from this list and that's it. At second level you get to pick 1 spell from this list, that's it, but then you get to pick 1 extra spell from that first level, and then so on and so forth as you go up. Now, over time, you're going to gain a lot of spells, and your magic user is going to be able to do more. But when you look at other magic systems and how they use them, where all these spells are accessible to any magic user, but it depends on how much power you want to put into it that makes the spell even more deadly, and just at that point annihilates your encounters on the board. That to me is, it gives more freedom if you're playing a magic user class to what you can do with it, and it makes magic seem more real to a fantasy tabletop game rather than a templated, strict guideline where you kind of look at the magic user as a necessary evil. Yeah, you need one because your characters are wandering around in this dangerous world that's just huge, full of magic. So you have to have something to help you offset them dangers. But at the same time, it's so frail and weak that you have to have a couple extra hired thugs in order to protect them, because if something happens to him or her, well, your ass is hanging out in a breeze, essentially. So I do like other systems, how other systems give you more flexibility with magic, and this system will be unique to see how they do that. So it says manner can, oh, sorry, it's just repeating what it was saying in English, and now it's going into Spanish. So that is cool that they have done that as well. But something I don't see in here that, well, it may be deceiving. So the book is in English. The description here is in English. Then it doubles in Spanish, but there's no Spanish in the book for, anyways. Maybe perhaps I didn't look that close at the description and you could select one in Spanish, and I bet that might be it. But I just find it a little, anyways. So one other thing I wanted to try out before what they were talking about is that, you know, old GL coming in and just decimating everything and doing away with everything and all that. So I thought, I have never tried or owned anything from Old School Essentials. Heard a lot of people talk about it, but then the way I looked at it, I'm like, I have so much old school stuff. Why just basically rebuy what I already have? But I did see another cover art that did really catch my eye and enjoyed it, and I thought I would pick it up and thumb through it, see what I thought, and see what kind of ideas it presents. Now, there is an interesting way to play these modules, and of course this is the Infernal Tranquility. I'm trying to read it backwards on the, and that guy just stood out to me. I seen that, I'm like, that looks really cool. That just looks like a wicked type of wraith. As you can see, it looks like he's dispatching ravens in his service. He's in this dark forest. This just screams gaming goodness to me right here. So it was like, I'm gonna pick this thing up. I have talked about this before when it comes to adventure modules and how I use them, because granted, they are, now I have not gone through this yet, I will say that, so I'm not referring to this. So for those of you out there that may be Old Essential just absolute nuts, don't take this the wrong way, because I have not gone through this yet. But adventure modules as a whole, and I have said this, the best thing to do is thumb through them, read them, use what you like, what you see, and you're like, this is really cool. I want to put this into my game. You may find other things in there that you do not like. Maybe it just does not really spark your imagination. Maybe it's just something, the concept may just be, I don't like this. I don't like where it's going, which is, it's okay. Everybody's gonna like one thing and maybe not the other, and so on and so forth. So don't use it. Just take it out and put something else in its place. If you have randomized tables, you can always go through there and figure out another randomized event that could tie back in and make a very cohesive and unique experience. Now, I had read, and a friend of mine had sent me this link, and the way it was written, it was talking about self-published adventures and how to use them in a solitaire setting. And I read through it, and I agreed with everything that was written in there. And it was like, yeah, you know, pretty much on the same level, use what you want. You know, if you get to something you don't want, put something else in its place. So, food for thought for the soloist is if you're thinking about picking any of these up. I normally don't, but this cover art really caught my eye. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try one, because if this does go through and they are all wiped out after this, probably the only time I will ever get a chance is finding it on the secondary market, a place like eBay, where they're going to watch your firstborn, and it's just like, it's just not worth it. So for what they're asking now, I think I'm gonna just try it. So I will get into this and I will let you know what I think about it, and if it's a decent system, and if I like what I see, I might look into getting more, or I may just be like, this was cool, it was a cool little read, I got some cool ideas off of it, but that's about the end of it. We don't know, because I have not gone through it yet. It's been so far quite an interesting weekend for me. I met up with an old co-worker of mine and my nephew, and we had gone out and watched the new movie Megan, which was interesting. It was not as scary as I thought it would be, but you know, for, how do we put this, lack of a better word, of the last horror movie that I saw that really creeped me out. I mean, it really, like when I was a kid and I'd watch a horror movie and you go to walk into a dark room and you'd think twice about it because you've seen something that really freaked you out. And it's been a while since I had experienced anything like that, and that was when I watched the movie The Fourth Kind. If you've never seen The Fourth Kind, I'm going to just put this out there for you. Do not watch it with your kids around. It is an extremely freaky movie. It flips back and forth between real police archive footage and archive footage that they felt wasn't really, it should not be displayed in a public audience. So they had recreated events that still stuck to the true events of the story. I'm just going to leave it at that, because that one freaked me out. Whereas with Megan, some of the parts I found to be very comical. And yeah, it was just, anyways. So it's been, you know, it's been a full weekend so far. And as I mentioned in my last video, that I had picked this up right here, and it's been sitting on my to get to pile of books that are RPG systems I want to go through. And of course, that's this campaign setting right here. And I have made it through 2 scenarios so far. Tonight, I intend to get to the 3rd scenario and get back into the gaming. But I figured what I would do, because using the solo system, I have found 2 different cards out of there that work really well for it, and it really did, I have to admit, make a pretty decent gaming session, to my surprise, to the way that I have played. That's the cool thing about being a solo RPG player, is that you're going to find a system that works for you. You're going to build on that. You're going to, you are going to add to it. You're going to adapt. You're going to find different tools and different ways to move on and make a more broader system for you, and find more simplified ways for that as well. And the solo system does a good job. Another way I can say of doing that and coming up with fresh ideas, whether you're using an Oracle like Mythic or Scarlet Heroes or something on those lines, whether you're using percentile dice, however, you know, you are doing that, is to try to play different game systems and change that up to where you're going to get a different perspective. You're going to get different challenges thrown at you that's going to force you to come up with different ideas in different ways to be able to utilize an oracle or something like that for the gaming session, which gets back to that old saying, the mother of all invention is necessity. So, all right, my friends, I just wanted to make a quick video. I wanted to, even though I'm looking at the counter and we're going on 40 minutes and I've been just sitting here rambling off for that amount of time, just throw some things out there, show you some ideas and stuff that I am getting into. I also wanted to, just for those of you out there wondering, I have books set up here as to which different RPG systems that I'm going to be getting into. One of them, I know I have been asked and people said, will you play a Call of Cthulhu RPG? I did pull that out. I do have that right here. And this is another great system. And if we look at who this is written by, it is Monte Cook. So that is another excellent system. It's another game for another time. And I hope to get into that here very soon. I got a lot of, we'll say, I got a lot of things in the fire currently that are going on, and that's a good thing as far as gaming. So I think it's going to be a busy year for old Artichoke Dip, but that's good because it's about time. Damn, it's about time. All right, my friends, those are my thoughts and not yours. And as I said, if you like the video and you like gaming content, click that like button. You're going to get more of it your way. And don't forget to hit subscribe, followed by the bell icon. When I upload, you get a notification. And my next video, if everything works out, and we have no, I shouldn't say we, I should say me, no interruptions to where I can sit down, I am going to set up the camera and I'm going to play through a session of my Ravenloft campaign setting, utilizing the solo system to show you how I use it, how easy it works, and why it's a damn good system, and maybe could help you out as well. All right, my friends, Artichoke Dip, signing off.